Okay, this is chapter 14, The Way Out. The next day was song rehearsal day. Everyone was let off from work at 12 o'clock to practice for the singing. It was a slow morning for messages. Lena had a lot of time to sit at her station in Garn Square and think. She put her elbows on her knees, rested her chin in her hands, and stared down at the pavement in front of the bench, which was worn smoothly by so many feet that had passed there. She thought about the mayor, down in his room full of plunder, gorging on peaches and asparagus and wrapping his huge body in elegant new clothes. She thought of his great stack of light bulbs and shook her head in bewilderment. What was he thinking? If he still had light bulbs when everyone else in Ember had run out, would he enjoy sitting in his lit room while the rest of the city drowned in darkness? And when the power finally ran out for all good, all his light bulbs would be useless. Possessions couldn't save him. How could he have forgotten that? He must be thinking the same way as Looper. Everything was hopeless anyhow, so he'd live it up while he could. She leaned back against the bench, stretched her legs out, and took a long breath. Very soon the guards would storm into the secret room and seize the mayor at his, as he sat stuffing himself on stolen goodies. Maybe they already had. Maybe today the stunning news would come. The mayor arrested, stealing from the citizens. Maybe they'd announce it at the singing so everyone could hear. No one came with any messages to be delivered, so after a while Lena left her station and found a step to sit on in an alley of Caillou Street. She pulled back her hair and braided it to keep it from sliding around. Then she took from her pockets the copy of the instructions she'd made just after she sent her note to the mayor. She unfolded it and began to study it. This is what she was doing when a little before 12 o'clock she looked up to see Doone running towards her. He must have come straight from the pipeworks. He had a big damp patch of water on one of his leg of his pants. He spoke in an excited rush. "I've been looking all over for you," he said. "I found it." "Found what?" "The E. At least it looks like an E. It must be an E, though you wouldn't know if you weren't looking for it." "You mean the rock marked with an E in the pipeworks?" Yes, I found it." He stood breathing hard, his eyes blazing. "I'd seen it before, but I didn't think of it as an E then, just a squiggle that looked like writing. There are all these rocks that look like they've been covered in writing." "Which rocks? Where is it?" Lena was on her feet now, bouncing with excitement. "Down on the west end of the river, near where it goes into that great hole into the pipeworks wall." He paused, trying to catch his breath. "And listen," he said, "we could go there right now." "Right now?" "Yes, because of rehearsals. Everyone's going home, so the pipeworks will be closed and empty." "But if it's closed, how will we get in?" Grinning, Doone produced a large key from his pocket. "I ducked into the office on my way out and borrowed the spare key," he said. "Lister, he's the pipeworks director, was in the bathroom practicing his singing. He won't miss the key today, and tomorrow everyone will be off work." He did an impatient shuffle. So come on," he said. The town clock struck the first of its 12 noontime booms. Lena stuffed her copy of the instructions back in her pocket. "Let's go." The pipeworks was empty and silent. Lena and Doone went up the hallway past the rows of boots and the slickers hanging on their hooks. They didn't take any of these for themselves. This was not a pipeworks tunnel they were about to enter. They were sure it wouldn't be dripping with water or lined with spurting pipes. They went down the long stairway and out into the main tunnel where the river thundered alongside the path, its dark surface strewn with flecks of light. Doone led the way along the river's edge. As they neared the end, Lena saw the rocky outcroppings Doone had described to her. They were strange, bulging shapes, creased with lines like the faces of very old. Not far beyond, Lena could see the place where the river disappeared into a great hole into the pipeworks wall. Doone knelt down beside a clump of stones. He ran a finger across their convoluted surface. "Look here," he said. Lena stopped, stooped down, and peered at the deeply carved lines. It was hard to see the E at first because it was surrounded by such a tangle of other lines, and because she was expecting it to be an E drawn with straight strokes. But once she saw it, it was an E drawn with curving lines, a script E. She was sure it had been carved on purpose. It was centered on its stone, and its lines were deep and even. So from here, we should look down at the river, said Dune. That's what the instructions say, down riverbank to the ledge. He lay on his stomach next to the rock and inched forward until his head hung out over the edge of the path. Lena watched him anxiously. His elbows stuck up on either side of him, and his head, bent down, was nearly invisible. He stayed that way for long seconds. Then he shouted, "Yes, I see something," and scrambled to his feet again. "You do?" he said. "You do it. Look at the riverbank right below us. You do it." Lena did as he did. She lay down and pulled herself forward until her head was over the edge. 8 feet or so below her, he saw the black water churning by. She tucked her chin in and looked at the riverbank. It was a sheer rock wall, straight up and down and slick with spray. And at first, that was all she saw. But she kept looking, and before long could make out short iron bars bolted into the bank, one below the next, almost directly below her. They were like the rungs of a ladder. They were a ladder, she realized. The bars provided a way to climb down the riverbank. Not a very appealing way. The bars looked slippery, and the water below was so terribly fast. And because of the dimness and the flying spray, she couldn't actually see if there was a ledge at the bottom or not. But the E was clearly an E, and the bars were clearly a ladder. This must be the right place. "Who'll go first?" said Dune. "You can," Lena said, getting to her feet and stepping away. All right, Dune turned so that his back was to the river, and he eased himself carefully over the rocks, feeling for the first rung with his foot. Lena watched as he sank out of sight, little by little. After a few moments, his voice called up from below. "I'm down! Now you come!" Lena inched backwards, just as Dune had, letting one foot dangle over the edge, lower and lower, until it touched the first rung of the ladder. She shifted her weight to that foot, clinging with cold fingers to a ridge in the rock, and lowered herself slowly until she was standing on the rung with both feet. Her heart was beating so hard she was afraid it would shake her fingers loose from their grip. Now she had to move downward. She felt for the next rung with her foot, found it, let herself down. It would have been easy if it hadn't been for the river waiting below to swallow her. "You're almost here," Dune said. His voice came from right below her. "There's a ledge. One more rung and you'll feel it." She did feel it, solid beneath her foot. For a second, she stood there, still clutching the ladder. The surging water was only inches below her now. "Don't think about it," she told herself. She moved sideways, 2 steps to stand next to Dune, and there in front of them was a rectangular space carved out of the river wall, rather like the entry hall of a building. It was perhaps 8 feet wide and 8 feet high, and would have been invisible from anywhere else in the pipeworks. You had to have climbed down the riverbank to see it. They stepped into the entry hall and walked a few steps. Enough light to see by came from the tunnel behind them. Lena stopped. "There's the door," she said. "What?" said Dune. The water roared so loudly that they had to shout to each other. "The door!" Lena yelled happily. "Yes!" Dune yelled back. "I see it!" At the end of the passage was a wide, solid-looking door. It was dull gray, molted, with greenish and brownish blotches that looked like mildew. Lena put her palms against it. It was metal, and it felt cold. The door had a metal handle, and just below the handle was a keyhole. Lena reached into the pocket of her pants for her copy of the instructions. She unfolded it, and Dune looked over her shoulder. Together, they squinted at the paper in the dim light for the main tunnel. I'm going to stop there today. I think, yeah. We'll pick up tomorrow.